Welcome to Fairfield Public Access Television. You're watching Opening Fairfield Doors. I'm Susan Kessel, host, and other host, Connie Boyer.
Our sponsor today is Dr. Robert Boyer, and our mission statement for this show is, by opening the doors of the lives of people and places of Fairfield, we will strive to promote understanding, awareness, and appreciation of one another. Pretty good, huh? I haven't said that for a while.
Lofty goal.
So today's guest is Julie Kinsella Harvey. Almost forgot. She is a newlywed. And I'm sure everyone has seen her around town. She is our only women police officer. And you've been doing that for how long, Julie?
6.5 years.
6.5 years, wow. And she is a local grown girl here, graduated from Fairfield High School.
Yes.
What year did you graduate?
1983.
1983.
I was going to say, I think I remember you when you were a little girl. And you grew up on the corner of Fillmore, across from middle school area.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I went to school with Amy.
Okay, my sister-in-law Amy, so you're her age.
Right.
Okay.
And then we had the state basketball tournament, and we won that my senior year.
So were you a basketball player?
I was.
And
sat on the bench.
Oh, well, that was an exciting time to get to do that and go.
Well, that's an important position anyway, because you have to help everyone
you
practice.
have to be there. Right.
Team can't win without a bench.
There you go.
So, well, I guess I didn't realize that was the year. Yeah, I've kind of forgotten about that.
And how did you get interested in doing this line of work?
I don't know. I guess I just kind of fell into it. It's something I've always wanted to do. After I graduated from high school, I went to college at Northeast Missouri State, and I majored in criminal justice.
Okay.
And then I got a 2-year ROTC scholarship, so I went on active duty in the military for 5 years.
So what does that mean, ROTC scholarship, for kids out there? I mean, that's still available, right?
Right. Anybody.
So what does that mean
apply.
for kids that are getting ready to go to college?
It's a reserve officer training corps, and what they'll do is they pay all of your tuition. They pay everything but room and board. Then you get money for books and stuff like that every semester of school. And then what you do is you promise to pay them back 8 years, depending on how long your scholarship is, and either the reserves, active duty, combination thereof.
And like National Guard, or does it make a difference?
No, you kind of pick whatever you want.
I see.
You have to be selected to go on active duty. It's not like something that's automatic. You go through and you get an evaluation between your junior and senior year. You go to a camp for 6 weeks, and then you get rated on your leadership skills. And then the top people get picked to go on active duty. And then from there, you accept the commission or don't accept the commission, and then you have to just pay back your time for the scholarship.
What kind of training, or what kind of program was this for 6 weeks?
You went through and you're put in leadership positions, and you're evaluated on how well you could lead, follow, make decisions.
Was it physical?
Physical. It was like
rigorous, climb the wall and all that jazz.
We did
on TV.
Yeah, you see a lot of that. We did like slide for life things. We went and stayed in the field. You have to go to a range and shoot. So different aspects. You had to go through and do a land navigation course. And each week you did something different. Mm-hmm. You had to pass a physical test. And then you got evaluated on how well you follow as well as how well you lead and stuff like that. And that's a big determination on whether you go on active duty or don't go on active duty, what type of commissioning you get. The regular Army commission is the highest you can get. However many West Point cadets graduate that year, there's that number matched from the kids graduating from regular schools, regular colleges. Mm-hmm. And then that's an RA commission. And that's like the top commission that you can get. Or you can have a reserve active status. And that's like the second highest.
Mm-hmm. So you were in the top, did you say? Or the second?
I had an RA scholarship.
Okay.
I had a commission.
Well, that's really great.
So
then when you finished college, then what happened?
I went, my first duty station, you go to your basic course, and that's in Fort Gordon, Georgia. I went into Communications Signal Corps, and I went there for 3 months. And then from there, you go to your first duty station, which was Korea. And I went there in 1988, which was when the Olympics were there.
Oh,
that was
good timing.
Good timing. It was a good day. We had 1 day off in like 90 days. And we didn't have tickets. We didn't have a game plan. We just went to Seoul. And it was the day Flojo set a record. Ben Johnson beat Carl Lewis in the 100-yard. There's a world record in triple jump. And I played tennis in high school. So it was the first time they let American professional women play in the Olympics. And then halfway through this doubles match, Chris Everett Lloyd at the time came down and sat like 15 rows in front of us to watch the tennis match.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was
so
just
you
great.
got in. You didn't have tickets?
You just go up and paid.
Oh, really?
It was just,
I thought you had have these really expensive tickets in order to go to the Olympics.
I don't know what I thought.
But it was in Seoul, and there's a lot of political stuff with North Korea and South Korea, and a lot of the people didn't show up because they thought that there would be unrest and stuff like that. So we just got lucky.
Well, that's really exciting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So what did you like about Korea?
People are really nice. It's interesting to listen to, like the older people who were alive during the war that have a lot more appreciation, and then the younger kids that are kind of idealistic and want North Korea and South Korea reunified. And you know, sometimes it was scary because they had like the protests. The students would protest every spring, so they're writing graffiti on the walls of the barracks and stuff like that, not wanting the American citizens there and stuff like that. But the people were always really nice. Good shopping.
Inexpensive, I've always heard.
And
Isn't
very
that right?
inexpensive. You get leather jackets for like $25 and stuff like that. And we met this guy, and as long as you could like try to speak the language, they were really nice. And then they'd write down the price tags on this card. This guy never asked for his card back, so we kept going back getting leather jackets really cheap. Like, okay.
Yeah, do they like to bargain like other countries?
Yeah, it's more like Mexico, and they're offended if you don't try to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're always cheap Charlie,
Yes.
because you're trying to rip them off and stuff like that. But it was really fun. Like in Seoul, one of the best places to go shopping was the old bomb shelters, and it actually goes underground like 3 levels. And as long as you can work your way through the maze, you just had to, and that's where the best shopping was in Seoul.
Oh.
And we didn't do like the typical, we'd go down to the Korean part and not the Americanized or the tourist places and stuff like that. And the people really appreciated you coming down, and they'd invite you in their shop because they wanted to see the Americans in their shops and stuff like that. So.
Interesting. See, now I've never gone anywhere like that, so I wouldn't. I can't even comprehend what that experience is
Yeah,
like.
that would be neat. So you've got to do a lot of things.
Yeah, go a lot of places, do a lot of things.
And then what did you do after Korea?
I came back to States and got stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington, out in Tacoma.
And what did you do there?
Communications. I did satellites when I was in Korea. I came back, and it was the old, they're called rat rigs. And it was like AM radio stuff that they had during the Vietnam War. It's like going from very new wave technology back to the 60s, and you were like, oh my.
What do you do with those?
We provided communications when I was in Fort Lewis for a military intelligence battalion.
Okay.
So it's not like you're just, you know,
Right.
assigned to a communications unit. You provide communications for other units and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I did that, and then in the middle of all that, I got sent to Desert Storm.
Okay, you did go.
I did go. My brother went first, and then they brought him back. He went in August, and then like in November, they brought him back, and he taught desert warfare training for the Marine Corps in Hawaii. So he had it really tough in Hawaii. So then we were home for Christmas, all home for Christmas, and then I went in January.
And how long were you there?
3.5 months. Got
Now,
there.
did they plan that so that two siblings weren't there at the same time?
No, it was just a fluke thing.
Yeah.
They needed somebody to go back and teach desert training to the Marine Corps. And then he's enlisted. He was staff sergeant at that time, and I was an officer. So it was just a fluke thing.
And what did you do there?
We provided communication for the 3rd Armored Division, which ran into the blunt of the Republican Guard coming out of Kuwait City.
So you didn't see like live action or anything, or did you?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you could see 3rd Armored Division's the tank unit, and you could feel the ground moving. You can see the tanks going, the rockets going. As we were going forward, they'd have the POW camps and stuff like that with the concertina wire, and they were bringing in the POWs and things like that. I did supply when I was in there, so I'd go back to Saudi Arabia, bring up supplies, go back, drop them off, go back to Saudi Arabia, bring the stuff up.
So how did that affect you emotionally? I mean, we don't want to get too deep here if it's uncomfortable, but
It
can you
makes you
explain some of those feelings that were
I think
going on?
the worst part is that the the first day we went back to Saudi Arabia after we got into Iraq and then the northern part of Kuwait, they opened up the road inside Kuwait City, which all the highways connect, and that's where all the vehicles were piled up, and it was starting to get warm, and they'd taken out, just the smell was like the worst thing. And they still had the landmines along the road, so you couldn't get off the roadway and stuff like that. It makes you appreciate what you have, you know, and people are very materialistic, you know, and it was funny as you could see them moving, people were just dropping their personal belongings and stuff like that. And at the end, you could see that the things that were important are, you know, the family pictures, you know, their IDs and their citizenship papers and things like that, and just the fact that some of the kids were, you know, alive and stuff like that.
Were you ever afraid for your own life?
You were so busy caught up doing what you had to do that you don't really...
Which is probably better than having idle
worrying
time.
about it. And then the Kurdish refugees were coming in and stuff like that. And so, I mean, that was really sad. Like one day when we go to different sites to provide supplies for them, they'd be like 10. The next day there was 100, and they didn't have, you know, latrines or tents or any place to stay, you know, and they're begging for food. And you know, we had stale bread. There's this little boy that was walking, and he's probably like 4 or 5 years old, and the mother's carrying this baby, and she's just tired. They don't have anything to eat, and the kid's begging, you know, just putting his hand out, grabbing for food. We gave him some stale bread and water, and I mean, she was so appreciative. You'd think that you gave her a 5-course meal and stuff like that. But, you know, even though you can't speak the language, you know that they appreciated that. You know, and that was sad.
So what happened to these people then, do you know?
I have no idea. No idea.
Interesting. So what did you think of Saudi Arabia? My brother's been there. He, you know, it's quite a different culture than we know here.
Saudi Arabia is a lot different than Kuwait. Kuwait is very westernized, and so that they don't go by all the traditional things. I got in trouble when I was in Saudi Arabia because we went into the village and we're getting supplies and eating and stuff like that, and they wanted me to put on a veil and stuff like that. And like they'd never seen someone with blonde hair, blue eyes, and we had these little boys following us around town.
Oh, I bet.
And they learned English is their second language, and they're mandatory that they learn English. And it's like, my friend wants to give you a kiss. I'm like, okay, bring him over here. And the little boys would run. And then the religious police came out to us, and they're like, well, you know, we'd appreciate next time if you came down, you would put on a veil.
Oh. And did you have to have like your arms covered and things like that, or did you already?
I didn't do it.
Oh, you didn't do it?
I didn't do it.
But you didn't get thrown in jail or anything, huh?
No. I didn't get in trouble. I mean, it was kind of cute that they wanted you. You know, when you'd go by and all the women are trying to hand you a veil. You're, put this on, put this on.
And does that mean your whole head to be covered or just your face?
Head, the whole robe, your head covered, and then the thing across your face, and stuff like that. And like for them, a woman's like a piece of property. You know, you can't speak unless spoken to. We had people that we were helping, we were feeding. They were actually Kuwaiti citizens who fled. He worked in the oil fields and stuff like that. He was an engineer for the oil fields. He had a brother that was a captain in the Kuwaiti army. And when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they lined up the brothers. They bought houses next to each other. It was kind of cool. They have like the stone walls all the way around the houses. And these brothers were really close. And they hired their nanny or maid when they were boys to work for them. They knocked down the wall in between the houses and joined the houses. So it was like one big family still. And when Iraq invaded, they lined up both brothers' families, and they shot the officer in front of their kids. And they had like 2-year-old up to like a 13-year-old daughter. So they fled into Saudi Arabia, and that's somebody that's very westernized, trying to abide by the very traditional Saudi way of life, and they were having a hard time. But when they sat in groups, because they're in Saudi, the women couldn't speak to the men. The men get fed first. If there's anything left from the meal, the women get to eat. You can't speak unless spoken to. The women have to walk 3 steps behind. You can't make eye contact.
Boy, would we be non-compliant.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
I mean,
totally...
we would all have a hard time with that, wouldn't we, ladies?
Yeah. But I mean, I thought, you know, like being in Korea was bad. Then you go somewhere like that, it's like, my God, how can you live like that? You know, and then people would come up to you, to my privates, and like, I want to buy this woman, here's some money. I'm bringing her
really?
right, yeah. Like you're just a piece of property, like you can just bargain.
So if they would have bought you, would you end up being a wife or a slave or what, or do you know?
I think it was just temporary.
Borrowing. Okay, let's not go down there.
But I mean, it was just weird going into that situation. It's like, how can somebody treat somebody like that? But it was really funny, the wife of the captain, they'd always agreed that if something would happen to either brother, that the other one would marry the other one's wife and take care of their children, stuff like that. And right before I left, Muna came to see me, and she goes, I'm wife number 2, I'm wife number 2. She had to wait like 90 days before she could get remarried. So her 90 days were up, so she was really happy that the brother was honoring his brother's request to take care of her and her family.
Well, I'm told that behind closed doors, the women are really treated really, really well. And that, you know, I mean, we kind of see one side of it as Americans and don't understand all of that kind of...
There's a reason they do all that.
Yeah, well, I guess there surely is, but
if you don't know anything different, you don't think of anything.
Yeah.
But I understand, and of course, if there's anybody from Fairfield that lives in Fairfield that's from Saudi Arabia, it'd be great if they would call us and we could maybe learn about that culture. But I do understand that, like I have heard, the women many times underneath all their robes, they're, you know, embellished with gold bracelets and will be wearing thousands of dollars worth of gold, and that they really are a queen within their home and treated very well.
Yeah, we were down buying gold in one of the shops downtown, and this little petite woman was getting married, and her husband was buying her a tiara for the wedding, and they had this gold belt that had huge just plates on it. And they literally had to have 2 guys go around. She had to bend over at the waist so they could get it latched because it was so heavy she couldn't stand up with it and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I mean, the jewelry is a big thing. And like if a Saudi woman gets divorced, they can take whatever's on their person when they get divorced. So.
That probably doesn't happen very often, does it?
Not really, I don't think so. But I mean, everybody I've seen, they were pretty much, it was kind of neat though because the men are very proud of their children and stuff like that. So. Where in America, usually that women are toting the kids around or, you know, as primary caregivers or whatever. But there, the men, like when they go into public, had their kids up on their shoulders and were giving piggyback rides and things like that. So that was kind of a different thing. And then as a show of friendship, the men hold hands. That was...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
So that was interesting. We're like, what's going on? And they're like, no, it's a sign of friendship, that it's a lot of respect. And like when we were sitting there one night talking, the fact that the men would address me directly was like a show of honor thing, that they appreciated what we were doing and the fact that we were bringing food and water to help their family and stuff like that. It was a neat experience to help the kids and stuff like that.
I bet it was.
And then, you know, you go down the road and the kids are like, Americana's good, Americana's good.
So in addition to seeing that lifestyle, I'm sure that here on the job you see a real variance in what goes on with people that are in trouble, whether it's, you know, drugs or how they live, their standards.
But it doesn't matter what type or like the problems with the drugs. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're one of the wealthiest families in Fairfield or one of the poorest families. I mean, if you've got the problems internal in the home, the problem itself is the same regardless of what type of household, and the fact that it affects such a variety of households.
Right, and I know that is a big thing, is that it doesn't have a
economic
yes,
indicator.
that it doesn't.
It's across the board, equal opportunity for everybody.
Right.
You know, that's what's scary. I mean, you know, when you think that if you send your kids to spend the night at someone's house, that they're going to be safe, you know, and it makes you really think twice.
And that you educate them and you do all the right things, that you're guaranteed that everything will be perfect, and it's not always like that.
No, and I think at this job you either see people at their very best or their very worst sometimes. You know, and unfortunately, you know, depending on the situation, it seems to be a lot of the extreme. So
what did you do then when you came back from the Middle East?
I went back to Fort Lewis, and then I got sent to the National Training Center for 3 months as an evaluator down at NTC, down in Barstow, California, in the middle of nowhere. Spent
I've
3
been
more
there.
months.
I remember being there when I was a little girl.
There's nothing out there.
Yeah, is that close to Needles?
Yeah, sort of.
Kind of,
in the
yeah,
general area.
yeah.
But again, did another 3 months, and then I went back to Korea again, and did like mobile subscriber equipment, which is like the real technical stuff. It's like having the facsimiles and the new wave stuff, the real current stuff. I was in a unit that did that. And then I came out and was a bum kind of for a year and just interviewing a lot, trying to get a job in law enforcement.
So you knew then exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that time span was 8 years total?
I did 5.5 on active duty, almost 6 years on active duty.
Oh, okay.
And then I was in the reserves
Oh, okay.
for a 2 year.
And you wanted to come back to Fairfield?
I didn't care where I went exactly. I actually
Oh.
interviewed a lot in Tacoma area. And the day I started the academy, the Washington State Patrol called. I'd already bought my house and stuff like that, was in the academy. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I didn't care where I went as long as it was in law enforcement, really.
So at what point did you start shooting a gun?
In the military or?
Well, I don't know, whenever. I mean, you probably did it some in college then?
Yeah, we had to go through and qualify as part of the ROTC thing, but that was mainly an M16, the rifle.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's that?
The long one. The military, the standard, if you see the people in the military, that's what they're carrying. And then for a handgun, I shot a .45 once in the military. And then when you go, and in order for you to be out on your own, you have to qualify here for the department. You have to qualify when you're in the academy.
And what does qualify mean? A certain percentage of hitting the bullseye or something?
Like,
It's not a bullseye, you get a silhouetted target.
like
okay.
Charlie's Angels.
Not quite- not-
You know where I remember those silhouetted target things.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it is. And you have to qualify 80% or higher. And then you have to do a night shoot in there. You have to qualify with the shotgun. Anything that you basically carry, you have to be certified on. So before you carry it, you have to.
So I'm curious, you know, a few weeks ago when the fire department did the thermal imaging camera, they took us down to the shooting range. What's at the end of the shooting range? Where do the bullets go in a shooting range? What's, you know?
There's like a sand pit and stuff like that. They're absorbed. The material absorbs the bullet so it doesn't ricochet around. And then they have to go back in there on the sand trap that's back there and clean out all the lead at the end. And then like we do that every month. We have to shoot. And then we qualify twice a year. We go out to the range, on the outdoor range, and qualify. We actually shoot into the gun. Walton.
Out by Walton.
Because otherwise, you don't get shooting in. I mean, you don't
Right.
go around shooting. So you have to just...
It's a skill that you have to keep up with.
Right.
'Cause, I mean, it's a liability issue. I mean, you can't take it back once you pull the trigger. And it's a high...
And that's something I never thought about. I mean, that there are these people wearing guns, and they do have to keep that skill level up.
Right.
Well, and not only that, if they only have to qualify 80%, 20% can be a big margin when it comes to missing.
You're
in
not
one
necessarily
sense.
missing. The center part of the target, the center of mass is what it's called, is a 5. And then you have to account for all your bullets. So then if you get off to the side, or it's called pulling it, or you don't breathe right or whatever, you could hit a 4, which will take your percentage down. But you're still responsible for accounting for all the bullets that you
But I
shoot.
guess, I mean, in real life, you know, as far as
They said the
if you
stress
would
level.
have to
Right.
use your gun, that 20% probably becomes pretty big, you know.
Well, it becomes a lot higher once you get the stress in there, stuff like that. They said that a lot of people that get into a critical incident, a lot of the bullets do miss. So that's when you have to think about what's around you. Is there anybody in back of whatever? You know, thankfully we've never.
I was going to say, have you ever been in a position where you thought you would have to use it?
I've had to pull it before. I think everybody probably on the department's had to pull their gun and stuff like that. But like if we do building searches, we pretty much have our weapon out. It's not pointed at anybody or anything, but you know we're ready for that. But a lot of it goes back to training. So, you know, there's a couple times we've gone with people who've had guns or people who've had knives or whatever. You know, it's just something that you hope you'll never ever have to use.
Right. So what is a typical day?
A There's no such thing as a typical day. I mean,
What's the strangest day?
the strangest. You could just go from one extreme to the other. I mean, you could be helping find a little kid who's lost going home, and the next minute you're doing an accident, and the next minute you've got a drug lab, or you're in a car chase. So, I mean, it's nothing that's...
Or you're directing RAGBRAI traffic, or...
Yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as a typical day. Because, I mean, we can't predict what the calls are. You know, one day you might spend the whole day taking dogs out to the vet clinic or something like that. The next day you might be directing traffic or power line. You get a snowstorm, like a couple years ago when all the ice was on the lines. And, you know, you're just trying to keep a couple roads open so people can go through.
It seems like you just need to know a lot about a lot of different things.
People are surprised that how much you have to know. I mean, you have to know the difference between a phone cable and a cable TV cable and an electrical cable. You get people, well, my electrical line's down. I'm like, it's not your electrical line, it's your cable TV. Call the cable company.
Well, that's important.
Yeah, I mean,
some
you know,
people.
but I mean, you know, they see a line down and they don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, and like the first snowstorm, I'm like, how can you tell the difference? So
So what do you think is the hardest part about being a police person? What's the official term for you?
just police officer.
Police officer.
I'm one of the sergeant, yeah. But I think the hardest thing, especially in a small town, is that you know the people. So, you know, if you've got to go and do a death notification or arrest somebody, I mean, the chances of knowing that person are very high, or knowing their family or whatever. So I think the death notification for me is the hardest. I mean, something that nobody relishes doing, or if their family's in like a serious accident, you know, giving them the bad news, I think is always hard.
Yeah. Do you have to go with another officer to do something like that, or?
Death notifications we do. We take two, because a lot of times if you're the person giving the information, you know, it's an emotional thing, and a lot of times they'll resent you for being the bearer of the bad news. You know, and then they might relate to somebody else better. You know, what can we get for you? You know, do you have any relatives or somebody that can stay with you? You know, depending on what the situation is. You know, it's a hard thing to do. You know, and what are the right words? I mean, nobody. You know.
Sure.
So I think that's probably the hardest thing. You know, and I think this job, it's a hard job to do, because regardless of what you do, you're never right, and there's always somebody analyzing what you did. Well, you should have done that. Well, you know, you weren't there. You don't know all the situation. You've heard the rumors and stuff like that. And it's not a popularity contest. Our job, sometimes you have to pay fines. Sometimes we have to put people in jail. I mean, that's not the ultimate goal, but in order to make the community safe, that's what we have to do.
Sure.
So the safety of the community as a whole, and not, you know, that individual. Sure. So, you know, and if you're the sensitive type of person that internalizes it, it's a job that can eat you inside out. You know, you have to have something.
And are there any issues related to being a woman? You know, like strength factors or you know, I mean, you know, you're not a very tall or a big lady, you know, versus having to deal with, you know, a 200 or 225 pound male. That's a big difference there.
But a lot of it is chivalry isn't dead. That a lot of time, I actually probably get away with more, I think, because most people aren't going to hit a woman and stuff like that.
There are probably pluses to that.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So, and it's because I'm not big, I'm not intimidating. It's not an ego thing where if somebody that was real big, you know, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to show you. Where sometimes, and women tend to be better at verbal skills. So a lot of times they de-escalate the situation instead of your presence escalating the situation. So
now, do you have to go through some kind of communication skills, how to deal with different situations? You know, how to disarm someone that's angry, or you know, those kinds of situations.
You'll get them in the academy. You have continuous training. There's training tapes that we go through, and stuff like that. Verbal judo is one of the last things that we did. But, you know, some people just have those skills, and some people don't. You know, some people are better at the physical stuff. You know, me kicking in a door is a little bit more difficult when the door handle's up here as opposed to someone there. No, but I mean, you still, you know, you're there for a while by yourself, but you always know that there's backup. You you know, and that you've always got help. You know, that's one thing. I mean, nobody on the department, you know, regardless if it's one of the deputies, the sheriff, or the police department, or any of the troopers that are around, you know, if someone needs help, everybody and their brother's coming. It doesn't matter. You know, if you're driving by and you see someone's in trouble, everybody's coming. I mean, it's a big, like, brotherhood thing that, you know, you're going to protect your own and stuff like that. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's.
And this is your uniform.
This is the uniform.
I was just noticing your shoes. I never looked at the shoes before.
Of course you look at the shoes because I didn't polish them that much.
Oh. Well, they're sturdy, heavy, get you through anything.
Right. In the summertime, usually I wear low tops. It's optional what footwear, as long as they're black, that you wear. It doesn't matter. These are just regular boots. They're waterproof. They're made of Gore-Tex. They're just a standard police issue boot. And pretty much everybody wears these or a dress shoe, depending on if you're doing more of an office job or actually working the streets. They used to have to wear cowboy boots a long time ago when I first started, and I couldn't walk in them. So I was really glad we...
Oh, and so what do you have on over there?
You have to go through all the little
Okay.
little things and what they mean.
Okay. The underneath is a bulletproof vest.
You wear that
all the time. If you're in
Really?
uniform and you work the streets, you're required to have the vest on. And it's like a soft shell in the back. And then you got a trauma plate across your heart. That's
Is that uncomfortable? Oh, we lost your microphone.
no, here it is. It's hot.
It's a hot uniform.
Right. Basically, all the gear is like wearing 30 extra pounds. So
That's what I wondered. How heavy is it?
about 30 extra pounds. You wear the
That
duty
would be a
belt.
lot if you had to run.
It is a lot, and then they wonder why, you know, everybody's so slow. You know, and then when we do the bike patrol, it's optional if you wear your vest if it's super hot. I think the only time I didn't wear my vest was the day it was Ragbri and we were directing traffic, and it was 112
It was
degrees.
super hot.
Right. That's the only time I always wear it. When we went to school last week, I wore it the whole time. This is just the badge. Your radio is over here. You guys are like little kids.
Yes, we are.
These are extra magazines. You got 2 extra magazines. It holds the bullets. It goes.
I was like, magazines?
Magazine.
What are you talking about?
You get a
This
read?
is a ladies' home journal. But those go there. They go in the butt of the gun, which is over here. This is pepper spray.
Okay.
If somebody is fighting or not, you know, you're not following the verbal commands instead of wrestling with them, a lot of times we'll squirt them. In order to carry this, you have to get squirted in the face with it.
You did.
Everybody who carries the mace has to get squirted, so that way they have appreciation of
And
what
what
it's
did
like.
it do?
It closes your eyes. It makes it hard to breathe. It burns. It's like eating jalapeno
Burns in your
peppers.
nose and your
So-
mouth or the eyes or everything?
Everything.
Oh.
So
your
you
eyes
know.
close and water and tear. You get a runny nose.
And then how long does that effect last?
You go right for the water. Water is your best friend at that point. Once you get it rinsed off and stuff like that, get your eyes opened and they like tear out, you know, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how much you've got and how well you react to it.
So you know when you use that what it's going to do to someone, and you think.
And then you have to,
A
you know,
lot.
you have appreciation, you know, that you need to get a medical treatment, you need to get the stuff washed off them and stuff like that.
Have you ever had to use that?
I've never have. A couple of guys have had to do it a couple times. One time, the guy was just out of control. It didn't have any effect on him. But most people, it just drops them instantly. And by that time, the fight's over, and that way no one's getting hurt. You know, so which is a good thing. The gun is over there.
On the, you don't have to pull it out.
No. Handcuffs and stuff like that. Everything on your belt is like you know where to grab and stuff like that. You just reach for it. We got latex gloves in the back of the belt.
A lot of keys.
For all the squad cars, we have the banks, the vet clinic. That's what they all go for. This PR-24, it's expandable baton. Can't really, it's hard. You can, the only time I've ever had to use this, actually this is like a defense to someone who's swinging a bat at you. It's a defensive weapon. You can use it to swing back and stuff like that. You can use it for takedowns. They're not giving their hands up. You can get it underneath their arm and use that as a lever. The only thing I've used it for is to break out windows when we're trying to get in. Someone's like falling down in the house and they're locked in their houses, stuff like that. So, oops. The radio, and then the mic cord up here. So, rank on the top. This is a traditional whistle chain that if they're directing traffic the whole time,
Okay.
they blow the whistle. It's just more like a decorative thing now.
How many police officers does the Fairfield Department have?
15.
15. And then there's the reserve police. That's still going, right?
Right.
How many people are involved with that?
I think there's about 15 of those. We do have 2 women that are on the reserves. So it's a good program, you know, and a lot of times
And they
we're
just
busy.
totally donate their time, correct?
Right. It's
It's-
non-paid.
yeah.
They end up having to pay for their own equipment and stuff like that. And for us, like when we're really busy doing traffic control or we're short officers, like people are on vacation and are sick and stuff like that, what they do is they have to have 2 reserves come in and work for like 1 regular officer.
What kind of training do they get?
They have to go through and get certified through the state. They have,
I mean, shooting the gun thing.
they qualify with us. When we qualify, they qualify. They have to shoot once a month, just like we do.
Really?
A lot of the training that we go through, they do, like on their weekly meetings and stuff like that. We go in and train them.
So do reserves sometimes go on to become full-fledged?
Probably about half the officers that we have now started out as reserves. So it's a good basis to draw from, a good pool to draw from. About half of us came from college and then in that way.
Is there an age limit that you have to be fit into?
There's no, like, at the other extreme end, you have to be 21 in order to get a gun permit. So you have to be at least 21 to be a certified police officer or a reserve, because you can't get a gun permit. And then as long as you can, good enough to qualify and do the physical agility parts of it, then you're pretty much in.
Now, you were talking about the bicycle patrol and preparing and everything. I can't remember seeing the bicycle patrol. I remember when they first came out and everybody was seeing them all the time.
What happened was we had a lot of officers that had quit or transferred over to the sheriff's department. So we were training officers, and then you have to have 2 officers in the squad cars, and then 1 person can ride the bike.
Okay.
Because we were going through a training program, we didn't have the manpower to get
So
the
there
bikes
was a
out.
time they weren't out there. It wasn't
They-
just me not seeing them.
They were out, but a lot of times they're out at night doing
Okay.
other things, so they weren't necessarily, it wasn't very obvious that they were out.
Right.
They've been out for the last 3 years, not regularly. Hopefully this is the first year we've been full manpower throughout the summer months.
And
I was going to say, what advantage does it give you being on a bicycle versus a squad car?
You can see and hear a lot more. You're more accessible. It's not a threat. Most people aren't intimidated by the bicycle, so you'll get people that will come up. It's more of a community relation tool. Will come up and voice their concerns, talk to you, have questions where they might not approach somebody in a squad car. There's a lot of things. It's a good surveillance tool. It's a good community relations in the fact that people want to see that. There's certain things like in the downtown area that the business owners want to see, so we'll be down there. It's good for schools and stuff like
I
that.
know when it first started, there was a lot of vandalism in the Central Park. I think it was before the lights, new lighting was
Right.
put up.
With putting the curfew, the parks close at 10 o'clock. So none of the kids can be up on the square after 10 o'clock now. And then it was more of an emphasis, you know, it was just kind of the group of kids that were up there hanging out. So it was kind of a cyclic thing. You know, and since then we haven't had that problem. Hopefully this year during the week and stuff like that, we'll get the people off riding their bikes, have them walking around the square. I know a lot of people are concerned coming out of the businesses that they're going to run over or get run over by a bicycler or whatever. So hopefully we'll curb that.
So when they did the curfew, I mean, have the kids moved to certain other places and you know, I see kids congregate on Burlington and 2nd Street, and it's so funny because in the summertime they'll bring their lawn chairs and they'll sit there like a bunch of old people.
Yeah.
You know, it's really funny, but you know they're not causing any harm, so
Right.
it's fine. But
Right.
have there been any other places in town where it's been a problem? You know,
Some of the businesses they've requested that the kids don't sit there, but as long as it's like the business isn't open and they're not loitering and you know, hassling any of the customers going in and out. A lot of the business owners, if they don't care, like on 2nd and Burlington, that business owner doesn't care if the kids hang out there. So if it's fine with him, as long as they're not playing their music and disturbing the neighbors.
Sure.
You know, like when we were kids, being on the square, you'd park your car at 6:30 just so you could get a place on the square, you know, and it's just.
And
but
hung
we
out
didn't.
at George's.
That's right.
George's Pizza.
But I mean, we didn't trash the square though. I mean, we weren't littering.
Yeah.
I mean, it got to the point for a while that you couldn't see the square. It looked like it snowed because the kids were throwing their trash and everything else down on there. You know, and then they wondered why they couldn't sit up there. I'm like, well, we had so much vandalism, the trash. You know, it's not right for someone to go spend 3 hours of their work day picking up somebody else's trash. So, as long as the businesses don't complain, you know, and the kids got to have some place to congregate and stuff like that. So, you know, as long as they're behaving themselves.
That's a nice attitude. Now, back to the bike riding. You were saying that you've had to do some of that lately.
Cameron Cooksey and I went to bicycle school and got certified as bike patrol officers through the state of Iowa. And we did 102 miles during the week, and we did 60 of those miles in 2 days, which when you're coming out of the winter months and you're not quite used to sitting on the bicycle seat, that's a lot of miles in a very short period of time. It was really funny. There's construction guys working down there. They're like, they look like Pacific Blue people. But it was good. It was a good experience. A lot of the skills that we didn't know that we were supposed to have, like stopping the bikes quickly. We've learned how to, like if a car would pull out in front of you, you can't get stopped. How to hit the brakes, kind of tap the car, come back, turn the bicycle away from the car without getting off the bike. We went downstairs.
And a lot of stairs, you said.
You had to, in order to qualify for the class, you had to do 6 stairs. And then we went over to Saylorville and they had an optional 32. So a third of us went down the 32.
That's just like
So
in
you
the
did do that?
movies where
Yes.
they.
Yeah,
That's scary.
to me.
Was that scary? It was scary to me.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of it is, you know, to have confidence in
Control.
yourself and control. And actually, the people that had the most difficulty going down them were going too slow. Because when you start shaking, you're going so slow, you're shaking.
Okay.
And then you hit a bump, then it throws your wheel one way or the other. You know, a lot of the stuff, like bicycle maintenance stuff, you know, usually it's, AJ, here's the bike, can you fix it? We're going to school. I know where the pedals are, I know where the handlebars are, I know where the brakes are.
So you know everything.
We had to change the tires, had to do, know what bolts were supposed to be fastened down.
So you'll have this job someday when you have kids.
Exactly.
Your husband won't. I don't even know if my husband would do all that. I think he took it up to the gas station to his brother.
But I mean, it was a really good school. A lot of the things that, you know, we just kind of made it up as we went because we didn't have any formal training, and there's a lot of things that we weren't doing correctly that we're going to start correcting. There's 4 of us that ride the bike. Cameron Cooksey, Jerry Marcellus, Kent Louse, and I ride the bike. So you'll see us 4 out.
Now you also said something about changing some hours. Rotating.
Every 4 months we switch from days to nights or nights to days.
Really?
We work 12-hour shifts. So you work 6 to 6, and then this is our 4-month change.
And do you work 4 days out of the week then, or?
1 week you work Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the next week you work Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So, but it works out really well because that way you get a 3-day weekend. When we were working 6 and 3, 6 days on, 3 days off, which meant you got 1 weekend off a month, and it was hard on families and things like that. This way, even though the hours are longer, you get more off time and more time to spend with your family and stuff like that. So it's good that way.
12-hour shift's kind of grueling, isn't it?
On the weekends, by the 3rd day and stuff like that, or if you're really, really slow, those are the worst. But, you know, it's like anything. I mean, if you don't get enough sleep, you've had to get up and go to court. You get off at 6 o'clock in the morning, get up, go to court. It's the nature of the beast, you know. You could be up or you get called in, you got depositions, whatever. But there's nobody I think, our department that would go back to the 6 and 3 rotation. It works well for us. It put 3 officers on a shift. Before we were only working 2. And a lot of times that's been the godsend for us because we've been so much busier the last couple of years. And that way people can take comp time, vacation time without having to make somebody else switch a shift or work different hours.
Why do you think it's been busier? Is that a dumb question?
No, I think a lot of it is that the department as a whole is kind of turned over. We've got a lot of younger officers that really are a lot more aggressive, that are really out there looking for things. I think with the drugs and more people...
Probably the more leads to more.
Exactly.
The more you know, the more you can find out, which in turn...
leads to more things.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people are out there aggressively trying. You know, they really enjoy their jobs, enjoying what they're doing. So I think that's a lot of it.
Are there any drug specialists?
Sergeant Hammis, our detective, has just gone. He can do marijuana testing. He can do the lab tests here, where we used to have to wait on the results from the DCI lab in Des Moines. And it was like 3 to 4, 5, 6 weeks, sometimes waiting on the results. So it's something that we can do locally now. We've got a couple people that have worked on the drug task force that have gotten some specialized classes there. On-the-job training has been a big help for us.
And still have the dog?
Still have the dog.
So she, right?
She, Geno.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just another tool that we've developed.
You know, that's the one thing that I never see the dog. I don't know if I just...
A lot of times, like, you wouldn't know. Like, if we do the search warrant, you wouldn't see it. Sergeant Thornton, when he works, has a dog always with him.
So, yeah, she rides in the squad car, right?
Right.
All the time? I mean, I guess I'm just surprised that I don't see them.
Well, they're just not out on the street walking around. I mean...
And depending on what shift you work, I mean, I don't think you're out all night long either. So you probably...
Well, that's true. I try not to be anyway.
You know, and it's been a good
It's
tool.
a normal rule, I'm not.
That's a good community relations tool and stuff like that. And a lot of times, if he's just answering a routine call, you won't see the dog because the dog doesn't get out. You know, if we've got, you know, an accident, the dog's not going to be out trotting around in an accident scene or anything like that. It's going to have to be a drug-related thing where we can use Geno's assets and stuff like that. So.
It reminds me, you know, talking about late at night, because there was one time when we had some kids outside our house that were, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, they were arguing. But that reminded me of a situation where Bob and I used to live, that there was a house next door. And quite often there would be arguing between the family members. At what point should someone call the police? I mean, there were times when I felt like I should have, but I didn't. It was just verbal, you know, arguing, and so there wasn't physical abuse going on. But on the other hand, there were these small children looking out the window at who I assume was their mother, screaming at this other person, and
does
you
that
know, the
happen
emotional
a lot,
part of it
where
was
someone
it was very
feels
uncomfortable.
like
So
they should get involved.
it's not like it was real disruptive, and yet it was uncomfortable.
But
Do you
I
know
mean,
what I'm saying?
Exactly. But do you want your kid? Would you want your kids growing up in an environment like that?
Well, that's the thing that I felt guilty later for not calling, because these children were, you know, 5 and 6 years old probably.
And a lot of people, I mean, if you grow up in an environment like that, you tend to have those type of, that's the way you deal with your problems, is screaming and yelling. You know, a lot of times if we go, and even if it's verbal, you know, they're not going to be happy to see us, but, you know, you have a right to live in peace. Those kids have a right to grow up in a safe environment, you know, and if we can end that cycle where, you know, the kids don't have to grow up in that or emulate that when they grow up, you know, I think we've done some.
So it would have been okay. I mean,
Sure.
I guess, you know, you kind of feel like, oh gosh, you
And
hate to
is
be
that-
a pain, or they have more busy things to do than to come and
But the only thing
take
is, a
care of
lot
this
of
family
people
that's,
think,
you know, arguing about, I don't know, whatever it was.
yeah. But a lot of times, though, the community is the eyes and ears. You know, we're as good as what the community makes us. So if you have a problem in your neighborhood and nobody says anything, we don't know that there's a problem down there. You know, whereas someone picks up the phone and says, you know, there's people coming and going, I don't know what's going on, or there's kids coming when the parents are gone, or, you know, that's the way, that's how we know. You know, it's a, you know, versatile society. People move around a lot. You know, the places that things happened last week aren't going to be the same places that they happen this week, so.
And is that where I see in the paper and the police reports or whatever that domestic abuse was reported? Is that a situation that would be similar? That someone...
There's like emotional abuse and stuff like that. You know, domestic abuse is one of the things that is, you know,
Does that
nobody
have
wanted
to
to
be
get involved.
physical, or?
No, it doesn't. You can, if I say I'm going to hit you, even though I don't hit you, but I can reach out and do that, then that's still abuse. Where if I call you on the phone and say I'm going to hit you, you know, it's more of a harassment type thing. You know, domestic abuse is one of the things that society is, the pendulum swung totally the other way, where if we're going to err, we're going to err on the side of the safety of the individuals involved.
Because it seems like I see that quite a bit.
That's one of the things, like, we don't have to. Like, if you guys were getting into an argument because you guys aren't married to each other, you know, if you decide you don't want to press charges against her, that's fine. Whereas if you guys were married, you two were married, you don't have that choice. If we go in and there's signs of physical abuse, we as the state can step in and file those charges without having a complaint from the victim. And that's just for the safety.
So is it written in the paper every time charges are filed, or just every time you go to that place?
If there's a complaint filed, anytime there's a complaint filed, anytime we do an incident report, it's Freedom of Information Act. So that's what, you know, just because you report something doesn't mean it's necessarily true or accurate or whatever, you know. But that's one of the things, domestic abuse thing is, you know, we're going to err in the safety of the individuals involved and make those people safe, or the kids safe, or give them a safe place to go. And that's one of the things that we can file the charges on without the victim wanting to file the charges.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say another modern technique that you're going to be using soon is the laptop computer you were mentioning for on-the-spot.
We're going to take them with us. We just got 2 laptops. As soon as we get them programmed correctly and everybody learns how to use them. It's something that, it's a skill. A lot of the people coming in, unless they've gone to college or whatever, or have laptops at home or computers at home, that is something that we're kind of a little behind. You know, our kids usually use the computers better than what we do. But it's a skill that we're learning and acquiring.
So out on the scene,
if we go on a search warrant, we can take the laptop with us, do the seize property sheets, do the evidence tags, save a lot of writing, trying to decipher someone's illegible writing and stuff like that. So hopefully you can do the search warrants right there and have all that stuff available to us.
Well, that sounds like a good improvement.
It is, you know, and it's something that it's hard because we don't have a lot of training. It's not like we can go to school and stuff like that. And for some people that you know, are intimidated by computers, will resist trying to learn it. But you know, as it becomes easier and easier and a little bit more user-friendly, some of the equipment that we have at the Law Center now isn't really user-friendly. So I think it's given people a bad taste. You know, and anybody that's intimidated by a computer, it's just emphasized that fact. Whereas now that we're getting better computers and more updated computers and stuff like that, they're easier to use, so people are wanting to use them more.
One thing I've noticed seems like more in the paper has been drunk driving. It seems like that and domestic abuse, or those kind of charges, it seems like every week there's a number of them. I mean, do you see an increase in that also?
I think
it's just my perception.
A lot of times you just get on a roll, and everybody you get is, you know, intoxicated driver or whatever, and you just get lucky getting them. And then it could be something that you have a long spell where it's a dry spell and you don't get any. It's not that they're not out there looking for them and stuff like that. It's just hit and miss, stuff like that. I think there's a lot of people that go out and look for them, stuff like that have those skills. We have a couple officers that are really good in that area. You know, some people are better in the drug area, some are better doing the traffic stops and finding the drunk drivers. But you know, it's a matter of balancing everything. Everything's important.
Sure.
A lot of times, if we're busy handling a lot of calls, we can't do a lot of patrol, like when the bars are closing or more peak hours for the intoxicated drivers and stuff like that. If we're handling other calls, so a lot of times, there's a lot of things like when you don't see them in the paper. It's not that we're not out looking for them. It's just we might be tied up on some other things.
So what have you been listening at all to the Iowa City struggle with their teenagers? There's a big deal about the 18 to 20-year-olds, you know, are allowed in the bars in Iowa City. And a couple weeks ago, they were supposed to have a city council meeting where they were going to decide whether they were going to ban those younger kids from the bars. And apparently they have delayed that decision until the fall. They want more input. But I guess there are some police officers that do not want to do it because it's more controlled with the kids down there and they feel they can control it better versus the kids if they go to homes and have parties and such. And of course, you know, with my kids being in Iowa City, I was like, 18 or 20-year-olds shouldn't be allowed in because they're not 21.
I feel like that too. If they can't drink, then they're in there.
What's
if they're in there to do it, and I have heard of some kids here that are 18,
they're just
that age,
it
and they're heading up to Iowa City. And I'm saying, well, there's nothing to do around here, and I'll say, well, what are you finding to do up there that you can't do here, really? Well, let's go into these bars.
It depends what type. You know, it's a personal choice thing. You know, how you want to raise your kids and stuff like that. You know, is that the environment you want to raise your kids in?
But do you think, as a police officer, it's better to keep the kids downtown? You know, I mean, I guess since you're not there, you don't really know.
Yeah. But Iowa City's a lot different environment than Fairfield. You know, so you know, Ottumwa has gone through that. They have college nights where they have just the kids that are underage can come into the bars and they serve them pop and stuff like that, and any time during the week or the weekends, kids can't be in unless they're 21. You know, I guess for an owner, the temptation is there for the kids to be in there sneaking the drinks, having somebody that's not of age, the fake IDs. You know, it's going to ruin someone's business having the kids there. I mean, I think the temptation is too great.
Yeah.
But that is a personal thing. But I think it's going to be up to a business owner can refuse to have somebody that's not 21 in there.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be on how the business owner wants to attack the problem.
Well, I know many of the business owners said, well, you know, we don't serve 18 to 20-year-olds, and I said, you know, baloney. You are serving them through a legal-aged person. You know, they send a 21-year-old or whoever, an older person up to the bar to bring back the drink back for the younger kids. So
That's a tough one.
You know, that's exact. But if it ruins someone's business, you know, what's more important? You know, making $2 on a drink or having your liquor license and serving people that are going to be responsible for it.
Anyway, the debate goes on. I guess we'll see in the fall what they decide.
That sounds like a whole nother show.
But Fairfield, they don't allow underage kids anywhere here in town, do they?
Some do, some don't. We've had a big thing. We've gone through. Officer Thomas has gone through and kind of picked up the carding and stuff like that. We've had problems. We've done walkthroughs in the bars, found kids drinking in the bars and stuff like that. We've picked up kids and have cited kids recently, and you know, basically, it's their choice. I know 2 of the bars have requested that the kids that aren't 18 not be in the business. So they're not even letting them in the door unless they're in.
And then there's the carding too, the matter of changing IDs, and it goes on and on.
But now, since the awareness is there and it's just a liability issue for the business and stuff like that, and they can lose their liquor license, we've actually gotten to a point where they're calling us. You know, I'm not sure if this person's of age. You know, we've had a couple people with fake IDs. You know, and I encourage that. You know, at least the businesses are concerned about that issue and don't want that type of thing.
Yeah.
So. I think the more we work with the community, the better they'll respond to us.
I think so too.
You know, we've consistently, you know, like in the last 5 or 6 years, gave fake ID classes to the businesses in lieu of charges. It was required that the business come and participate. Yeah,
that's great.
And it's something like when I started it, you know, in lieu of charges, because otherwise you're just going to give a distaste to the business owners. And a lot of times it's not the business owners necessarily that's doing it; it's the people that they have working for them that. They don't see the problem with supplying alcohol to a minor, and they think that's cool. And they don't understand that the business can lose their license and lose their livelihood by doing that. I think all they see is the instant gratification right in front of them for some of those kids. So.
Well, gee, Julie, did we miss any important parts of your life growing up in Fairfield? And
you did just recently get married.
Yes, I did.
Oh, well, that's
and your
pretty
husband
important.
is?
Ed Harvey.
Okay.
And he's an assistant county attorney over in Wapello County. And then he's going to open up a private practice, and I have a stepson. 17-year-old stepson.
Whew, so you step right into those shoes.
Step grandmother. My mom thought that was really funny, and then I'm like, well, Mom, if that makes me a step grandma, that makes you a step great grandma. And she really quickly lost the sense of humor in that. So.
Oh, I'm sure that's a challenge, but it'll be a rewarding one.
Yeah, the kids are cute. They're good kids. So it's been pretty easy.
That's great.
That's great.
Well, it sounds like just everything you do is overwhelming to me. I just don't think that when we see you out there, we really have a clue everything that you're doing and have to be involved in and know about. And I don't think we say thank you. The community takes the time to say thank you for doing that.
But it's rewarding. I mean, once you get like people that come back in, you know, and you've helped them, and you're like, do you remember me? And I'm like, no. Like, what you said to me made a difference. You know, I'm a different person now. I've made it. Or, you know, you get a kid that's in trouble and, you know, they don't ruin their future by doing some of the stuff that they're doing, you know, and they go through and, you know, they basically make it, or, you know,
so it must be very rewarding, and you get a lot of opportunities to make a difference in someone's life and help.
And that's the biggest benefit of the job. I don't think a lot of people see that, you know, so that's, I think, what makes everybody want to do it.
Well, I think from the community we say thank you to you and all the other officers for doing what you do and going out there every day to protect our wonderful little town.
You're welcome.
So thank you for watching Opening Fairfield Doors, and we'll bring another show to you soon. And for now, that's all.